Hi, Bookaholics, and welcome to the Bookaholic podcast and YouTube channel. Today's guest is part of the Writers Workshop. His name is Rick Bleiweiss, and he has had a heck of a career. Let me just start off by saying he's a Grammy Award winning producer turned writer. Okay, who does that? Rick does. So check this out. Check out his credentials. He started in music as a rock performer and has been a producer of over 50 records. He's a songwriter and record company executive and worked with Clive Davis, Melissa Etheridge, the Backstreet Boys, Kiss, U2, Whitney Houston, and the Bee Gees. That's a heck of a resume. And in 2006, he began his career trail as a publishing executive. He acquired works by best-selling and award-winning authors, including James Clavell, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Rex Pickett, Leon Uris, and Nicholas Sanberry Smith, among others. Now he has written his own mystery. Think Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot. We will meet his protagonist in a historical mystery series. Please welcome and get ready to hear some great information from Rick Bleiweiss. Hi, Rick. How's it going?
Good, Deidre. How about with you?
It's fantastic. It's a bright, sunny day. I'm glad to see the sun, and I'm glad it's heading into spring.
Yeah, you and me both. Totally.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This month we're doing a writer's process, if you will, and so not only we're going to talk about your book, but we're going to talk about your journey and your process in writing a book. So let's get started.
Sure.
I've already shared a little bit about your music journey with the audience. Can you give us a little synopsis of how you went from a rocker to being a music executive?
Yeah, actually, I was always the leader in the bands that I was in. I seem to have a right brain, left brain that work in unison, if you will. Some people are more one than the other. I'm lucky in
Yeah.
that I have both. And so while I was always playing and writing music and things like that, I was also always the business mind in the band. So I booked the gigs and, worked with managers and agents and things like that. So
Okay.
when it kind of came time to transition, if you will, look, I didn't think people would still be rocking when they were in their 60s or 70s. But of course, Mick Jagger and others had proved me wrong. But, way back when, it was like a foreign concept to me.
Right.
Actually, the whole thing started. I spent 3 years in college at the University of Miami. I ended up going to the NYU, but I started at Miami. And when I was at Miami, I applied for a job as a college intern for Colpix Records. Later, the home of the Monkees, but not at that time. It was
Wow.
pre-Monkees. And I was selected out of all the applicants to be their college intern. And what initially started is, well, we'll send you some posters, bring them to some local record stores and put them up.
Right.
Expanded into where I ended up being their promotion man for the entire state of Florida. And I spent as much time visiting radio stations trying to get their records played as I did in a classroom. So,
Yeah.
and at the same time, I was also playing in a band and a rock and roll band. So I was kind of combining school, music, and learning how to be a business person.
Wow.
Later on, I was playing in society orchestras, playing weddings and bar mitzvahs and things like that.
Yes.
And this
Yes.
gentleman I was playing with, who was older than me at the time, much older, I was the young rocker, I was in my late 20s. He came up to me and said, a friend of mine owns a small record company in Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin, a suburb of Milwaukee. And he's a piano player, and he's not getting anywhere with the company. He's not really sure what to do. And I remember you telling me you were a college intern, you did promotion. Would you mind talking to my friend? So to make a long story short, they flew me out to Whitefish Bay, and it turned out that the man I was meeting with, he and his wife owned every Weight Watchers franchise in the state of Wisconsin. And this record company was their sideline. So they take me to Weight Watchers headquarters, and we meet for the entire day. And right before I was to leave, around 4 o'clock to fly back to New York, where I was living at the time, they came to me, he and his wife came to me and said, we'd like you to run our record company. We'll set you up in an office in New York. We'll give you a budget to sign acts, and you want to do it. And I said, sure, why not? I mean, one of the things I do is why not? Let's try it. If it's legal and if it doesn't hurt, why not? So I opened the record company, and I was writing a science fiction rock opera at the time. And one thing led to another, and a headhunter found me at that record the record company that I opened ended up being bought by another company, and I went along with it. And I became head of promotion at a new company, and then a headhunter found me and took me to a bigger company. And that's kind of how I transitioned into business. And at the same time, all of this was happening, I was producing records. I produced over 50 albums and singles. I have a Grammy nomination. I produced the record that popularized whistles and discotheques, and produced a record that the NFL used, and another one Coca-Cola used. And so I was really juggling the right brain, left brain of being an executive, helping all these other acts succeed. And at the same time, I'm producing acts and hoping that they'll succeed on my production talents.
Wow. Now let me go back a little bit. Did you get to graduate from college?
Yeah, I not only got my bachelor's in filmmaking, and in fact, Martin Scorsese and Bob Balaban were classmates of mine. And then I went back and I got my master's in communications. So I have a bachelor's and a master's degree. And I did that all while I was playing, writing, working, you name it. I mean, it was like, I can multitask. I'm lucky in that way too.
Yeah, apparently you can multitask. Now, one thing that was so interesting is that I told the audience about all the musicians that, I mean, and it's a total wide dynamic of musicians that you came in contact with, from Clive Davis, Melissa Etheridge. I believe you helped Melissa Etheridge start her career. Did I read that right?
Yeah, I was one of the key group of people that helped Melissa launch her career. Absolutely, when I was at Island Records.
Wow. Okay, the Backstreet Boys.
Same thing with
Yes, you too. And you did for the Backstreet Boys too, correct?
Yeah. I was. In fact, I came up with the two ideas that their record company used to really launch them. One was bringing them to Europe and having them be superstars in Europe, and then bringing them back to the US, almost like the Beatles, in that regard.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So
I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the very first Backstreet Boys record that was put out didn't do well here. And so the record company called me in and said, you have some ideas? Because we really believe in the group, and I believed in them. I had heard them, and I thought they were fabulous. And I said, yeah, let's do a Beatles. Let's take them to Europe. Their sound will be big over there. Let's break them in and bring them out here as conquering heroes, and we'll get the girls, to meet them at the airport when their plane lands, which they did. And then the other thing that I suggested, which we did, was at that time, Walmart was selling music, but they weren't really known for selling music. And we knew they wanted to be. So I suggested that what we do is approach Walmart and ask them to become Backstreet Boys headquarters, and that we would do a special album for them, a special single. They do banners in the stores, and that we would help bring the awareness to the boys by everything that Walmart could do. And it took us having Walmart representatives come to Switzerland and see the boys play live to make sure they were clean enough for
Right.
Walmart,
Right.
and they were, and they did, and the rest is history.
Oh my goodness. I never knew this portion about the Backstreet Boys, and I don't think a whole lot of people know that either. Well, that's quite fascinating. Now let's fast forward a little bit to, I realize music and publishing and writing all share creativity as a common denominator. But now how did you get into publishing, book publishing?
Okay. I retired. My wife was in the music industry as well. She dealt
Okay.
mainly with classical acts. She was general manager of RCA Classics, and did the Three Tenors album and all that stuff. So we were living in New York, and we both decided to retire from the music industry. And this was in 2002, and we left New York and moved to Ashland, Oregon, where we currently live.
Okay.
Great small town America. And I got bored, and I started joining boards of directors, the Shakespeare Festival, the Film Festival, the Food Bank, the university here. And I still found that it wasn't enough, that I had all this knowledge I had built up over the years that was just kind of going to waste. And I'm an A-type personality. I don't sit around easily doing nothing.
Right.
A friend of ours who lives in Portland, Oregon, happened to own the audio rights to Winnie the Pooh. And he came down to Ashland to license those rights to Blackstone Audio, one of the largest audiobook companies in America. And he stayed with us while he was here. And while he was at Blackstone, he said to Craig Black, who was the founder and owner of Blackstone, I have these friends who I'm staying with. He told them a little about Deborah and me and said, you should meet with them because their knowledge is something that you could use in your company in some manner. So the next week we had lunch with Craig. And at the end of the lunch, Craig said, Christopher was right. I know there's something that things I can use. I just don't know exactly what I'm going to do with you. So he hired us as consultants and to be on his board of directors. Then Deborah retired fully, and I went on staff, and I've been on staff ever since. And since 2015, we're also a book and ebook publisher, and we're into film and TV now as well. And I hope that I've helped the company expand tremendously since I've been part of it. I am not going to take credit for what has happened. I'm just going to say I did my part.
Wow, that is incredible. And I hope I'm getting this right. You own the rights. Is it you or Blackstone own the rights of some other writers' creative content, rather? So Gabriel Garcia Marquez, if I'm saying his name right. So you own the rights to 100 Years of Solitude?
It's Blackstone, not me. I mean, I secured those rights. I secured those rights for Blackstone. So I was able to get the entire James Clavell catalog, including Shogun, the Gregory and MacDonald, Fletch and Flynn catalogs, a lot of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, including, as you said, 100 Years. I was able to get H.P. Lovecraft, P.C. Cast, Catherine Coulter, and quite a few other big authors. Rex Pickett.
Wow. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was saying Rex Pickett, who wrote Sideways, and Rex and I have become close friends, in fact, as have PC and I. One of the things I find is I like creative people, and I like writers. And while there is an occasional diva who is so full of themselves, whether male or female, I'm not putting a diva meaning men or women, it could be either. But when there usually is one so full of themselves, you really don't want to be around them. But 99% of the authors that I deal with, I just love. I love them as people, and I love the fact that they're creative human beings.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, there's always a little bad apple that pops up every now and again, but that's great that you love it. Well, now let's talk about this is your first novel.
Right.
Pin, Pignon, is it Pignon Scorbion?
That's perfect. Pignon, Scorbion, and the Barbershop Detectives.
Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Now, so you've gone down so many roads, Rick, so many roads. So how did you, just being around authors made you want to write a book? How did you come to want to be a writer?
Okay. I'll have to take you back a little, but I'll definitely get to answering the question. I I
Okay.
have I have written in some form my entire life. I mean, I wrote songs, which is a form of writing. As I said, I
Right.
wrote a science fiction rock opera, which was a total writing
Yes.
project that had music with it. But I also wrote and published a sports newspaper when I was 12 that I sold to four of my neighbors. I wrote a play when I was 15 called "Where in the World Can a Man Take a Crap in Peace?" about how we're littering our planet. I wrote scripts to the student films that I was making while in film school. And then I started writing articles for magazines and columns and articles for newspapers. Um,
Okay.
they were all nonfiction though, and I had no thought to writing a book at all. I just like writing short form,
Right.
magazine pieces or newspaper columns. Um, and what really happened was when I moved to Ashland, my next door neighbor was a poet in a writing group. And
Okay.
we got to know each other pretty well. And I had mentioned to her, that I had done all this other kind of nonfiction-y writing. And she said, well, why don't you come and sit in on a session or two of the writing group? We have poets, we have fiction writers, short story writers, nonfiction writers. They're all based here in Ashland. And I think you'd enjoy them and they'd enjoy you. And maybe it'll spur you on to writing. So I started
Right.
joining the group. And it did. It started getting my creative juices flowing, if you will. And I
Right.
started writing short stories. And in fact, the Scorbion book started as a short story.
Okay.
And it went over so well with the writing group that they said you can't just leave this short story. This has to become a book, which was really the
Right.
impetus for me to do it. And I've written a few other books in that group. None of which will ever see the light of day. After I have reread them, I realize why the agents turned them down. And I realize I'm a better mystery writer than a sci-fi writer or a magical realism writer. But
Right.
I just, I enjoy the process of writing. And
Yeah.
how I write is I'm a pantser. I sit at a computer and
Yes.
an idea for a story just plays out in my mind like a movie. And my job is
Okay.
to capture it for a reader so that they can read what I'm seeing play out in my mind. I don't
Wow.
bulletproof things. I don't set things up in advance. I don't know where my stories are going. They play out as they happen. Um,
Wow.
in fact, when this book started, I did not have a character name. None of the characters had names. All I knew was I was going to write a book that came to me about the first story was about a guy who was a fortune seeker. And it was in a small, quaint town in the countryside, England, in the early 1900s. That's all I knew. That's what appeared in my brain. And it started playing out. And I had to research to come up with names for the characters, the time
Yes.
period, etc.
Exactly. That's part of what I was going to ask you. And so I might ask you a question that overlaps with that, but
Yeah.
that's where I find it's so intriguing to me when I talk to writers. And I'll ask them, how did you come up with the name? How did you key in on such a this name hopefully is totally fiction. I hope nobody has the name Pignon Scorbion. But
I don't
how
think
did you
so.
come up with that name? And how and why did you settle on a historical mystery? And do you think if you go on to your next book, are you going to continue with the historical fiction
Okay, I'm
piece?
going to answer the last part first, and then I'll go back to how I came up with the name,
Okay.
etc. Okay,
All
first of
right.
all, last night, this is breaking news. Last night, I turned in the second book in the Scorbion series to my publisher.
Oh,
So
oh,
there absolutely will be a second book. It'll come out a year from now.
good.
And maybe, depending if it does okay, maybe there'll be a third. I've started writing the third book. So what I said was that I've even started writing a third book, a third Scorbion book. I don't know
Yes.
whether it'll be published or not, but I've started writing it, and I'm enjoying the process. At the same time, coming out in May, I have a short story in a uh, anthology of mystery short stories called Hotel California. And
Oh,
it's the first book in a music and murder anthology series. The second will be called Thriller, and the third will be Back in Black, all named after hugely successful albums. I'll have a story in each, and in those books, the stories I've written are contemporary. They take place today, and they concern a hitman, New York City hitman, who has a hit put out on his life, and he escapes to Hawaii, and it's the cat and mouse game that he plays with the hit person sent to finish him off. Is he going to get them, or are they going to get him? So it's a very, very
oh,
different type of
oh,
story. Still a mystery, though. So
yes, but I like that concept, and because once you said it, and we know that you're a musician, I was like, well, that's part of where that's coming from.
well,
Wow, that
actually,
sounds
I didn't come up with the idea for the series. I was just asked to write for it, but I loved the idea.
wow, that is fantastic. That
But
is
now,
fantastic.
let me go back to the question you asked about how I came up with Pignon and Scorbion. Okay.
Right,
So again, what played out in my mind, I can't tell you why, was that his
right.
heritage would be that his father was Egyptian and his mother Haitian. Um,
Okay,
it was just there. I didn't do it on
okay,
purpose. It was just there, and I went with it. Uh, I went
right.
with I went with England in 1910 because it felt very comfortable to me. I've always been a fan of Sherlock Holmes and Hercule Poirot and Downton Abbey and Father Brown, and things that take place
Yes.
in the same era and the same environment. And it
Okay.
was there again, and what I saw, and it felt comfortable. I like the fact that it was a gentler, kinder era than with less stress than we're living with today, if you will. So it enabled me to write a book that was entertaining, not something that would add to the stress of people today. Okay, so
Right,
I've got a character whose father's Egyptian, whose mother's Haitian, and I need a name for him. So the first thing
right.
I did was I researched Egyptian and Arabic names, and I found this
Okay.
name Scorbion, and I liked it for two reasons. One reason was because it is a real Egyptian name. One of the
Yeah.
reasons I liked it was it's close to scorpion, which is a common word in English. So it wouldn't sound so foreign sounding that, like it
Right.
wouldn't relate to anybody. But I also liked it because in the language, it stands for being entrepreneurial and assertive and enthusiastic. And that's the qualities that I had his father being, in which are in the
Oh,
book. So I thought it fit. So then I needed a first name. And since I had his father going, I'm trying not to do spoiler here, but since I had his
yeah.
father going to Haiti, where he meets his wife, Pignon Scorbion's mother, um,
Right.
in the research I did on Haiti, I found that there was a region called Pignon. It was a mountain and a valley
Oh,
named after the French explorer who was the first European to go there. His name was
oh,
Pignon. And
okay.
so I postulated in the book that that's where the Pignon Scorbion father and mother met, and they conceived him there right after they
Right.
got married. So why not name him after that? And I
Right.
liked the way Pignon and Scorbion went together. And to me, it was
Yes.
sort of like Hercule Poirot. It's not your
Yes.
average Joe Smith name. I wanted something
Yeah.
where people,
Yeah.
oh, that's different. Well, I think I achieved it.
Right, I think so, and that is a wonderful way of how you got put that name together. So, sidebar. So, is he's a brown man, correct? Is
I
he
would
a
say,
brown?
I would say that he is a man of some color. Yes, brown is a good description. I have purposefully not suggested any pictures of him because I want
Right.
to leave it up to the reader to picture him. I mean, the only things we've come up with are silhouettes of all the characters. And
Okay.
in my mind, yes, he was a man that had some shade of brown to him. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Now let me ask you this: is Pignon dapper like Hercule Poirot, or is he sloppy like Columbo?
No, he
That's
is
not a spoiler.
totally no, he's totally dapper. In fact, he may be even more dapper than Hercule Poirot. He wears custom made bespoke black and white shoes that were absolutely not worn at the time by anyone. He wears custom made suits at a time when most of men's outfits were drab gray, black, and brown. In England at the time, he's
Okay.
wearing light blue linen suits with with handkerchiefs in his lapel, and
Okay.
he's absolutely dapper. And um, unlike Poirot, who was not particularly attractive or attracted to women, Scorbion is
Right.
just the opposite. He's very attractive to women, and he is attracted to women. So
Okay.
he's a very
Okay.
different character.
Yeah, I was going to ask if he was a ladies' man. So, okay, well, it might not be per se a ladies' man, but that's good to know. Now, let's get into your writing process. And you did say a little earlier that your story, this story just came to you and you were on your computer. So, my question to you is, what's an element that is totally necessary to your process? I would say computer, but I'm looking for something more.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's totally necessary to my process is continually through the writing process, going back and rereading what I've written to make sure that I have enough red herrings, that I have enough clues, and that
Yes.
it's contiguous from beginning to end, so that it's
Yes.
like not like I say this in the beginning and I say something contradictory at the end, and it's like, well, where did that come from? I want
Right.
people who read my mysteries to be able, when Pignon reveals the solutions, I want the reader to be able to say two things. Number one, yeah, I can see how he arrived at that. There were enough clues that I could have seen that. But I also want them not to have figured it out 40
Right.
pages before Pignon reveals the
Right.
crime solution. So I'm constantly going back, and that is really the one of the most kind, that and research into language,
Yes.
into time, place, everything. Those were the two most time consuming things in my process of writing.
Wow. 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 Okay. And do you have any writing rituals? You know how what's it LeBron James claps the powder before he starts the game and he goes up in the air. Do you have any little rituals that you like to do before you start writing or in the middle of the process or at the end?
No, not really. In fact, I know some writers who like music playing when they write. I need dead silence.
Okay.
I just lock myself away in my office and I sit there with no outside distractions. And really, the only thing that I have is I set goals for myself of how many words I
Okay.
want to write, but I don't do it on a daily basis. I do it on a weekly or a monthly basis. So there may be a week that I don't write at all, and then the next week I may be writing 8 to 10 hours a day for 5 days straight. So I'm
Wow.
just trying to hit word count goals over a longer period of time than putting the pressure of any one day on me.
Yeah, yeah, that to me could almost cause the writer's block if you were doing that, just putting too much pressure on yourself. So now I believe at the beginning of one of our prior conversations, you told me, I hope I'm not, you won't hit me or you're fine with it, but I think you told me you were 77
I am.
and you're on the move, you're on the go. More people need to hear about your story because you were just on the move and on the go. And so you already told us where your book processes are. You turned in breaking news. Your new next book, the Pignon series, is at the publisher. It's ready to rock and roll, and you've got the short stories. But is there anything different that you've got on your to-do list?
Well, I'm in the process of redoing the science fiction rock opera that I co-wrote a number of decades ago. I've added some new songs. I've rewritten the plot, and my agent is going to be going out to see if she can get interest in that. And
Wow.
then I writing. Well, I'm writing the next story in the Music and Murder series of books. I'm writing that next story, and I've come up with an idea. Again, I was just sitting there, and it came to me. Um,
Wow.
I've come up with an idea for a book about a senior, a guy who's my
Okay.
age, maybe even a little older,
Okay.
who's ex-military, and his kids send him to a senior home, a home for seniors, and he reluctantly goes. And while he's there, he finds out that a local band of youths have been terrorizing the inhabitants of this house, this senior home. So he organizes the seniors and teaches them how to fight back. Um, sort
Oh,
of like sort of like Home Alone meets The Karate Kid, if you will, meets Best Marigold Exotic Hotel. So I'm probably going to write that, and then also I've picked up writing my memoir again. I had written part
oh,
of it, and I'm picking it up, and I'm picking it up with a new slant, because before, what I was
okay.
doing was writing the memoir really more as a collection of anecdotes from my music career, like what I did behind the scenes with Kiss and Melissa, and
Wow.
etc. And now what I'm doing is I'm orienting it more as almost a self-help memoir around what you
Okay.
talked about, and that is, you're never too old to try something new. And
Correct.
that you should be chasing the pot of gold at the end of rainbows until the day they put you in the ground. If you've got
Right.
ideas, people think that
Right.
age is what should stop you from doing them. So I'm going to try to orient my memoir kind of around helping, being an example to other seniors, while at the same
Yes.
time including some pretty fun anecdotes out of the golden age of the music industry and publishing.
Wow. That sounds fantastic, Rick.
Thank you. I hope so.
Yes. Yes, and you should definitely get on it. And that book would be very helpful to a younger generation of people, a younger audience, because I think they believe that once you get a certain age, I don't know if they think that we're useless or don't have any fun anymore or whatever. I don't know what's on their mind, but maybe something like that could help clear things up for them. That we do have hopes and dreams and goals and
Yeah.
like to have fun.
No, I would hope so. And part of what I'm also going to do in the book is impart some of my philosophies about writing, because you talk about the younger generation, and I'm on social media quite a bit and interact with a lot of people in the younger generation, and it concerns me that so many of
Yeah,
them have a fatalistic attitude, and that they can't, they don't think they're going to succeed. And I'm a very
right.
positive thinker. I mean, I did manifestation. I
Yeah,
mean, my belief is that it's like prayer. The power of
mm,
prayer is because people believe, and if you have
yes,
negative beliefs, you're not going to succeed to the same degree as if you have positive.
correct, correct. Next month we're doing an entire series on mental health issues, and that's some of the subjects we're going to talk about people using maybe an age 30 as if I don't achieve X, Y, and Z by the time I'm 30, I'm done for, no good. And that's not true. So that's one myth that we want to dispel and keep people in a good, positive frame of mental health mind. So I'm glad you brought that up. So
Yeah.
definitely very important, very important.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, I really appreciate you being on my show. You have definitely given us, I don't know how to even put it into words, but your career has been fascinating and exciting. And you have just taken every good thing and you just continue to move forward. I just love your story. And definitely you've got some good input for those struggling, those avid readers who are struggling writers out there. So I really thank you.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. I want to see everyone succeed at what they do to the best of their ability. You know, as Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. So, you know.
Truly, truly. I hadn't heard that one, but that's a good one. That's a
Yeah.
very good one.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot and much success to you. And shout out your social media handles for us and your website.
Oh, yeah. Well, my website, hang on a sec. My website is rickbleiweiss.com. And I got a newsletter there and information about everything I'm doing. And one of the things that I have on my website is there's an entire page devoted to independent bookstores, listing over 1,300 of them and where they are and their contact info, so people can find independent bookstores. I have my Twitter is just at Rick Bleiweiss. My Facebook is Rick Bleiweiss Author. Instagram, Rick Bleiweiss Author. YouTube, I have a YouTube channel. It's Rick Bleiweiss. Most everything is either Rick Bleiweiss or Rick Bleiweiss Author. And I hope people will find me and communicate with me.
I'm sure they will. And for those who are listening to the podcast, we'll have Rick's social media handles and his website below in the show notes. And on YouTube, we'll have them below the video.
Great.
So, and also a link to his book. And so thank you very much, Rick, for joining us today. And thank you for listening. Hey, Bookaholics, if you like books, reading, book news, hearing from authors, then this is the channel for you. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, make sure you follow me and download the episode. If you're looking at my YouTube channel, make sure you like the video and subscribe and hit that little bell so that you can be reminded anytime that I upload a video. Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate your follow.
Thank you for joining the Bookaholic Podcast. We appreciate your support. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, follow us on Instagram at True Bookaholic. You can also email us at readingjunkie@book-a-holic.com. Don't forget to support your local library and independent bookstores.